Have you ever just laid there staring at the ceiling at 10 p.m.? You're completely wide awake, but literally the entire world is telling you that you should be asleep. It's incredibly frustrating, right? Especially when your body is basically screaming, "No way!" to a bedtime that society just kind of agreed upon. In our last explainer, we dug into exactly why a teenager's body genuinely isn't ready for sleep at 10 p.m., even when everybody desperately wants it to be. But today is all about solutions. We're going to look at 4 concrete things designed specifically for both teenagers and parents that actually work with that unique biology instead of endlessly fighting against it. And I'll tell you right now, I'm going to share a bit of an open secret. It's the third solution that matters the absolute most, yet almost nobody ever hears about it. Okay, let's dive right into it. But first, let's set the stage here. If you're new to our explainers, this space is made slower and quieter on purpose. You won't find any crazy fast cuts here, and there's absolutely no manufactured urgency. We use these explainers to give you the exact structure you need to grasp the information clearly. It's really just a space to think and learn efficiently. Now, what's really fascinating about this timeline is the context it gives us. Let's do a super quick recap. During puberty, a teenager's internal clock genuinely shifts about 2 hours later than it was in childhood. When your kid, melatonin, the hormone that signals sleep to your brain, starts releasing around 8 or 9 p.m. But for teens, that release doesn't even kick off until around 11 p.m. So when that societal 10 p.m. bedtime hits, the biological signal for sleep hasn't even showed up yet. And I want to be perfectly clear about this. This isn't laziness, and it is definitely not a discipline problem. It is pure biology. Which brings us to the core problem, and probably the absolute most common piece of advice handed out to exhausted teenagers. Well, just go to bed earlier. So why doesn't that work? I think we love to believe that demanding sleep simply relies on sheer willpower. We think if we just try harder, close our eyes really tight, and lie in the dark, the body is going to magically comply. But expecting a teenager's body to follow a command that completely ignores its current chemical state, that's a totally losing battle. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why. Think about it, you wouldn't force yourself to feel hungry at a specific time, would you? You can't just command your stomach to be starving at 2 p.m. if it just isn't. In the exact same way, you simply cannot force an internal clock to shift on command. Willpower is totally useless when the biological system doesn't even have the necessary tools available yet. So every step we're about to cover works by gradually shifting the clock itself or working with the schedule around it. All right, let's get into the 4-step action plan. Step 1. And teenagers, I'm speaking directly to you for this one. Anchor your wake time, not your bedtime. Now, I know this sounds completely backwards, but the really crucial point here is that your body's clock actually responds way more to when you get up and get light exposure than it does to when you try to fall asleep. An anchored wake time, which basically just means keeping a consistent wake-up time every single day, especially when you pair it with morning light, is the actual thing that shifts the clock. Over 1 to 2 weeks, that stable morning anchor gradually nudges your entire sleep cycle earlier. But teens, I do have to give you kind of a harsh warning here. Sleeping in on weekends undoes this progress almost every single time. Look, I know sleeping in until noon on a Saturday feels like incredibly well-earned rest after an exhausting week at school. It feels amazing in the moment. But biologically speaking, you are completely resetting all the progress you built during the week. You're basically wiping out that 1 to 2 weeks of careful clock shifting you just achieved by anchoring your wake time. Consistency is literally everything here. Step 2 builds directly on this, and teenagers, I am still talking right to you.
This one is all about dimming the signal before bed. Specifically, we really need to understand the blue light delay effect. See, screens don't just keep your brain occupied and awake because you're watching an engaging video or texting your friends. The blue light they emit actively delays your melatonin release. Remember that timeline from earlier? Your internal clock is already running late. Staring at a screen just pushes that already late biological clock even further into the night.
But hey, don't panic. This doesn't mean no screens ever. I am absolutely not suggesting a total ban on your phone or your computer. It simply means reducing your blue light exposure in the hour before bed specifically. We are targeting this exact time frame because that's when the delay effect is at its absolute strongest. Dimming the signal in that one specific hour gives your natural biology a fighting chance to actually kick in. All right, so we've covered the 2 personal habits. But at the very beginning of this explainer, I promised you 4 steps, and I set up a bit of a loop. I told you that the 3rd step is the one that matters the absolute most, but it's the one almost nobody talks about. So, what is it? For step 3, I am explicitly shifting my focus directly to the adults in the room. This is for the parents, the school administrators, and the community leaders.
Step 3 is structural. It is advocating for later school start times. Research increasingly shows that this is hands down one of the most highly effective changes available to us. Why? Because it actually works with adolescent biology, rather than asking millions of individual teenagers to somehow override their natural internal clocks through sheer painful effort every single morning.
As the research points out, individual habits help at the margins, sure, but this addresses the actual mismatch at its source. This is exactly why systemic change is the most effective solution of the whole bunch. Steps 1 and 2 are great, they really are, but they're basically fighting an uphill battle against a schedule that completely ignores human biology. Changing the start time fixes that structural mismatch. Now, because it is a structural change aimed at systems rather than just individual behavior, it's also the hardest one to act on alone. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't advocate for it loudly.
Finally, let's bring it all together for step 4. And this one applies directly to both teenagers and parents.
Step 4 is knowing the absolute limits of quick fixes, specifically when we're talking about melatonin supplements. First off, melatonin requires medical guidance. Please do not treat this as a do-it-yourself experiment. Second, it needs the right time and the exact right dose to actually be effective. Using it without professional guidance can honestly make your sleep timing worse rather than better. And third, it is absolutely not a substitute for steps 1 through 3. If sleep problems are severe or persistent, please go talk to a doctor or a sleep specialist who can figure out what is actually going on, rather than just guessing with over-the-counter bottles.
So let's summarize the core philosophy of this entire explainer. None of the steps we've covered today mean that a teenager should suddenly be able to fall asleep at 9 p.m. and feel great about it. As we've seen, that is just not how their internal clock is wired right now. The ultimate goal is actually really simple. Work with biology, don't fight it.